I was tagged in the good, the bad, and the ugly garden challenge, I guess it is, by Jules Gardening. And of course I couldn't do this video without paying homage to the great Clint Eastwood classic. But I thought I'd use this opportunity to just give an update of the garden at about, what are we, almost mid-August here. So we're gonna take a look at what's good, what's bad, and what's real ugly in the garden right now. Here's a good. We've got these tomatoes on cow panels here, cattle panels. And I've got a pink beefsteak and a red beefsteak. And they're doing really well. You can see we've got a lot of big fruit ripening up already. Our cucumbers have also done extremely well this year. We've been picking for like a month and everybody is sick to death of cucumbers and they just kind of keep producing. We can't keep up with them. And this is our raspberry drops grape tomato, which got much bigger than a typical grape. As you can see, we've got a lot of fruit on there. The Emerald Towers basil, which I talked about in a recent video. They are really happy interplanted with these tomatoes in here. And then our sweet corn over here is doing pretty well. I've got two varieties planted in here. Solstice, which was a bicolor, and then I've got a new one. It's Wild Violet. It's a purple and white bicolor sweet corn. And that one is pretty close to maturity. We already picked the Solstice. The peppers are doing good. I've got a purple bell pepper in here. It's got some good sized fruit on it. Both of these plants do. See that lovely color. And then all the rest of these are different types of serranos and jalapenos. And you can see we've got quite a bit of fruit in there. Melons are doing well so far back here. This is one plant that is pretty loaded with fruit. There's some okra. And then my watermelon is just kind of taking over the world back here. My Chinese 5-color pepper is looking lovely. I love all the colors this thing shows as it changes. Tomatillos, we've been picking for a while. My loofah gourd is growing like crazy. Oh, we got another one. I was gonna say, I only saw one fruit on here so far. Looks like we got another little baby there. And my compost pile pumpkins are doing pretty well so far. I was a little worried about these guys, but we've got some pumpkins already coloring up. A little early. These guys are gonna be harvestable by September, but Hera, come on out of there. Come on, come on, come on out of there. Come on. And then I've got my little honey nut squash down here these are fairly close. Another couple weeks these might be mature. This is a personal butternut squash. Very, very sweet, very delicious. These are a lot of fun. We got some castor bean plants here. And they are about, it might be taller than 8 feet. I can't really tell. But they will continue to grow and grow, and they'll put some really cool red flowers on. You can see how giant these leaves are. I got caught in a rainstorm the other day and I was able to use this plant as an umbrella. And my straw bale experiment was a good thing this year. Everything went pretty well. I've got a shishito pepper here, orange marmalade. This is like a compact plant with an orange. These will color up to orange. You can see one starting to color up back there. I've got Brad's Atomic Grape. For some reason, these got much bigger than grape size this year. And some other grape tomatoes down here. You can see the blade or the septoria leaf spot is starting to set in here as well. And I've got a whole bunch of beans. And my potatoes just kind of keep growing in here. Most of my potatoes, in fact, all of my potatoes are done and harvested already, except for these guys. Another good is all these lovely, lovely flowers that are doing so well in the garden this year. My little hedge sunflowers are pretty much done, but those looked really good earlier in the season. We've got these lovely Queenie series zinnias. Some ornamental peppers down in here. These will turn bright orange, look like little pumpkins. You can see more. This is the Queenie lime orange. There's some of the just Queenie lime in here. These lovely little, this is a pink buckwheat mixed in with my white buckwheat cover crop. I just think those are adorable. This ornamental millet. There's a few little sunflowers hanging on here. There's a little Homer. Hey, little Homer. What you doing? What you doing, little Homer? I've got some calendula still blooming, nasturtiums. We have a cosmos. I love these dwarf sulfur cosmos. These are some of my favorites. This is a Signet marigold, and they're this really, really fragrant, I don't know, almost like minty grapefruit. I don't know how to describe the foliage, but it has a very intense smell. These tiny little blooms. I've got this interplanted with this holy basil, which again is a really, really pungent smell. I love this, but I think it's one of those, like, you either love the smell or you hate it. But all of these, the basil, the Signet marigolds, and the buckwheat, just bring in the pollinators and the beneficial insects like crazy. I've got a couple lone little, this is a sombrero zinnia. More of the sulfur cosmos. This is the wild violet petunia. And some Zahara zinnias tucked in here amongst my cowpea cover crop. More of the, I can't remember if this is Indian summer or orange marmalade rudbeckia. Just extremely floriferous. Back over here we've got jasmine scented nicotiana, which starts to send up this really wonderful fragrance at about this time of night. And then finally, one of my favorite fairly recent finds. This is Malabar spinach. This is actually edible. The greens you can use like spinach. They have a more succulent texture than a typical spinach would, but they're extremely heat tolerant. They love the heat. In fact, they won't really start taking off until it gets quite warm. And I actually use them more as an ornamental than anything. They're extremely fast to climb. You can see they've got these lovely red stems, and they will put on just a ton of these tiny pink blooms and then black, almost black berries, which are quite lovely. And I think everyone who walks into the garden asks me about this plant. I really, really like this one. You can see these things. They really should be on a taller support. They could be climbing up that trellis over there. They get so tall. Now, unfortunately, a reoccurring bad that I seem to keep doing this entire gardening season is not providing my plants with proper support. So you can see here on my container tomatoes, I tried to stake these cages up, but they were way too flimsy. And this whole tomato is going sideways. I think the only thing holding it up at this point is the mountain mint plants behind it. And like I said, I've been doing this all season. I started with my peas this spring, not giving them enough support. These were doing really well. They were standing up beautifully, like so. Big wind came through and so next year I will be using my cow panels to plant my peas on. I'm glad these have done so well, but I'm very sad that they are all flopping over. So hopefully by next year I will have learned my lesson. And of course, a reoccurring bad every single season are the bad guys. And I kind of always have the same crew of offenders. You can see here the handiwork of the tomato hornworm. We have potato beetles every year. There are squash bugs every year. So I just try to do the best I can to encourage the beneficial insects to kind of level out the balance between good and bad. So this section is good at first glance because all of the winter squash and pumpkins in here are doing incredibly well. But I'm gonna put this in the bad category because I did a terrible job spacing this out. And now this path that I've made between these archways, you can't even really get through. And everything is so overgrown in here that I'm never going to be able to find a pumpkin. You can see we do have a few squash in here. And that giant guy. There's one peeking out there. Some of these tromboncino types. But in the back corner here, I've got, this was the Lunch Lady gourd mix. And we've got some really fun ones growing in here. So over here we have got the ugly. Now at first glance, maybe it doesn't look so ugly because if you're like me, the first thing you notice is the really great fruit set on these tomatoes. But when you look a little closer, you will see how terribly defoliated these are by septoria leaf spot. And this disease set in early and it just kind of moved down the whole row of tomatoes. And it's one of those diseases where once it sets in, there's not a whole heck of a lot you can do about it. And the problem with it is, because of this defoliation that's happening, it's going to affect fruit flavor big time. So the tomatoes that you get off of plants that are defoliated like this do not taste nearly as good as a plant with all of its lush, healthy foliage. Cabbage worms finally caught up to me. I was so happy because they did not show up till so much later in the season than normal. But they are here and they are here with a vengeance. And it seems like the cross-striped cabbage worms are actually the ones doing most of the damage at this point. As you can see over here, my poor Brussels sprouts are just eaten up. And we did get an application of, I used both spinosad and BT on these, but it was after a lot of this damage was already done. So these will grow out of it, but they look real bad right now. More ugliness here. We've got Japanese beetle damage all over these grape leaves. But this guy is fun. He may look bad, but he's actually a good guy. It's a big ol' assassin bug right there. Here is another tragically ugly happening in the garden this year. These are from my no-dig potato experiment. And while I did get some lovely, decent-sized potatoes, I also discovered that voles really like potatoes. And this is what happened to a lot of my lovely spuds. So I hope you enjoyed my good, bad, and ugly garden tour. And be sure to stop back for more garden updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.